It was a quiet suburban street, the kind you see all across America. Neat houses, children playing, neighbors waving, a picture of peace. But behind one door in Norwood Park Township, a darkness was growing. The man who lived there was well known, even liked, a businessman, a local political figure, a friend. Sometimes he dressed as a clown to entertain children. His name was John Wayne Gacy. Behind the friendly smile and painted face of Pogo the Clown, there was a monster. A predator hiding in plain sight, responsible for a string of disappearances that baffled police and terrified a city. The story of John Wayne Gacy is a chilling reminder that evil can wear the most ordinary of faces. How could a man who brought smiles to children's faces be capable of such unspeakable acts? The answer lies in a twisted psychology, a life built on secrets and a chilling ability to separate his public persona from his private horrors. His story is not just a tale of crime, it's a cautionary tale about the masks people wear. We must pull back the curtain on this seemingly ordinary life. We must walk through the quiet neighborhood and step into the home where nightmares began and ended. The story of John Wayne Gacy is a journey into the heart of darkness. It is a story that, once heard, is impossible to forget. The name John Wayne Gacy has become synonymous with the darkest parts of human nature. To understand the monster, we must first look at the boy. John Wayne Gacy was born in Chicago, Illinois, on March 17, 1942. He was the second of 3 children in a working-class family. From the outside, his childhood seemed unremarkable. But within the walls of his home, the seeds of a troubled future were being planted. His father was a stern, often cruel man, an alcoholic who was verbally and physically abusive. This constant criticism chipped away at his self-worth, creating a deep-seated need for approval and control. As a teenager, Gacy struggled to find his place. He worked a series of odd jobs, including a stint at a mortuary, where he reportedly developed a morbid fascination. He craved respect and power but lacked the conventional means to achieve them. So he began to build a facade, learning to be charming and present himself as confident. He eventually moved to Springfield, Illinois, where he married and started a family. But beneath this carefully constructed image, the darkness was still there, waiting. When John Gacy moved to Norwood Park Township, he was determined to reinvent himself. He started his own contracting business, PDM Contractors, and became known as a hard-working man. To his neighbors, he was just John, the friendly guy down the street. Gacy was a master of networking, active in local Democratic politics, and threw lavish parties. These connections gave him an air of legitimacy, a shield of respectability. Gacy's community involvement was legendary. His most famous role was that of Pogo the Clown, performing at children's hospitals and parties. The irony is almost too much to bear. A man who preyed on the young disguised himself as a figure of childhood innocence. This public persona was Gacy's greatest weapon, allowing him to move through society without suspicion. He had built a fortress of normalcy around himself, and it was nearly impenetrable. His neighbors trusted him, his friends admired him, and the children he entertained adored him. No one could have imagined that the man who threw the best parties was secretly turning his home into a private graveyard. Gacy's ability to fool so many for so long is a stark reminder of the human capacity for deception. His story forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that monsters are not mythical creatures. They are human beings who walk among us. And so the shadow of John Wayne Gacy lingers. By day, John Gacy was a man of routine and respectability. He managed his contracting business and his life was a performance, and he was the star of the show. But when night fell, the mask would come off, and a predator would emerge. Gacy's targets were almost always teenage boys and young men. He would use his contracting business as a lure, offering them jobs. Once inside his house, the friendly facade would crumble, revealing the cold, calculating killer beneath. The home that hosted parties for politicians became a torture chamber. Here, Gacy had absolute control, a power he had craved since his abusive childhood. After the killing, Gacy's methodical nature would take over again. Most of his victims were buried in the crawl space beneath his house. He lived, ate, and slept directly above a mass grave of his own making. This chilling compartmentalization is what made him one of history's most terrifying serial killers. The end for John Wayne Gacy began with one missing person, Robert Peast. He was 15, a bright and responsible teenager with a part-time job at a local pharmacy. On December 11, 1978, Robert was supposed to meet his mother after his shift. He had been talking to a local contractor about a summer job. The contractor was John Wayne Gacy. Robert told his mother he was just going to talk to the man for a few minutes. He never came back. Robert Peast's disappearance was different from the others. He was not a runaway. He was a good kid from a loving family. His parents immediately knew something was wrong and contacted the police. The Des Plaines Police Department launched an intensive investigation. They quickly learned the identity of the contractor, John Gacy. The detectives were persistent, led by Joseph Kozenchak, who had a gut feeling about Gacy. They began to dig into Gacy's past and uncovered his previous conviction in Iowa. They placed Gacy under 24-hour surveillance. During their surveillance, police noticed Gacy disposing of items that belonged to other missing young men. A second search, prompted by the overwhelming smell of decay, would finally unmask the monster. On December 21, 1978, armed with a new search warrant, investigators returned to Gacy's house. The house itself was unremarkable, but there was a feeling of dread in the air. A strange, sweet, sickening odor hung in the rooms. The focus soon turned to the crawl space. As one investigator began to dig, his shovel hit something soft. He cleared away the soil and uncovered a human bone. The crawl space was not just a crawl space, it was a tomb. The discovery was staggering. The house was immediately sealed off and became one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history. A team of forensic anthropologists and archaeologists was brought in to excavate the bodies. The final count from the crawl space was 26 bodies. Gacy eventually confessed to more killings, telling police he had disposed of several other bodies in the Des Plaines River. The final tally was a horrifying 33 victims. The news of the discoveries at Gacy's home spread like a shockwave through Norwood Park and the greater Chicago area. The man they knew as a community leader was a serial killer. The sense of betrayal was profound. The neighborhood became a place of fear and suspicion. For the families of the missing boys, the news brought a horrifying end to years of uncertainty. The process of identification was agonizing. The community's trust was shattered. The nightmare on Summerdale Avenue was not just a personal tragedy, it was a collective trauma for an entire community. The trial of John Wayne Gacy began on February 6, 1980. The prosecution had a mountain of evidence against Gacy. They had his confession, the bodies, and physical evidence linking him to the victims. The goal was to prove that Gacy was sane and should be held fully responsible for his actions. Gacy's defense team pursued an insanity defense. They argued that Gacy was a deeply disturbed individual, a victim of a split personality. It was a battle of the experts, a classic courtroom drama. The prosecution methodically dismantled the insanity defense. They presented Gacy as a cunning and manipulative killer. Kunkel's closing argument was powerful and direct. He listed the names of all 33 victims, a haunting roll call of the lives Gacy had stolen. After just under 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with its verdict. On March 12, 1980, John Wayne Gacy was found guilty of 33 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. Why do we still talk about John Wayne Gacy today? His story continues to fascinate and horrify us in equal measure. The number of his victims places him among the most prolific serial killers in American history. The method of his concealment is a detail so macabre it sounds like something from a horror movie. The enduring legacy of John Wayne Gacy goes beyond the gruesome statistics. The image of the killer clown has become a cultural archetype, a symbol of innocence corrupted. The Gacy case serves as a permanent cautionary tale. It reminds us that evil does not always announce itself with a menacing scowl. The shadow of John Wayne Gacy lingers in the memory of his 33 victims. Their stories are the true legacy of this case, a tragic reminder of the darkness that can hide in the most ordinary of places.